Hey everybody, my name is Sublett. I know that we're running a little late on time, so I will do my best to go through this as quickly as possible. I am the biologist at the Toledo Area Sanitary District. On your schedules, you'll see that Paul is supposed to talk. Paul is actually in Washington right now, talking to senators about the stuff we just heard. So, yay. A little bit about TASD. We were established in 1945, and we've been doing mosquito control ever since, and that's all we do. So we're a complete and comprehensive program. That means that we do adulticide, larvicide, source reduction in the wintertime, education, community outreach, which is what I'm here, and then we do a whole lot of surveillance. Before I get going, how many people here do an adult control program? Have an adult control? Awesome. How many people in here do resistance testing? So that's what we'll talk about today, doing pesticide resistance testing, and really it's just a really good tool in your field. And I'm going to just start off a little bit about talking about the importance of using science-based data as you do mosquito control. So why do you want to use scientific-based data? Well, it really goes back to the start of the environmental movement and kind of credited with arson, silence, rain. And although we get a lot of good stuff out of the environmental movement, a lot of good has happened, you also get a lot of times some really high emotionally charged people, right? An example of this is the Zika outbreak down in Florida. You had a very serious disease concern, and public officials down there decided to do an adult control. And it was met with a lot of protests and a lot of opposition. Right? So, in your own communities, when you do an adult control, you want to be able to have scientific data to help explain and kind of help calm these people down a little bit when you go and do an adult control. So, how many people in here are going to change their program if they get a locally transmitted case of Zika? How many people in here are going to start doing adult control if that happens? Okay, how many people are going to change something? Probably everybody, right? Well, with any kind of change, you're going to get some questions. You're going to get questions from the public about the environmental impacts. Talked about honeybees, so people are going to ask, how is this going to affect pollinators? You're going to get questions about human health concerns. How is this adult control going to affect my family and me? But you're also going to get questions not only from the public, but from your own organization, from your bosses, right? Say you go and you want to buy an adult control product, and it's, you've done your homework, it's a really good product, but it's super expensive. So you go to your boss and you say, I want to buy this product, and he or she says, no, why? We can buy this really cheap product instead. Is it really cost effective to buy this really expensive product? And then the next question that they're definitely going to ask you is, how do you know it's even going to work? And then you got to ask yourself about how is it going to work? When should I even do my adult control? So, Zika mosquitoes, the mosquitoes that carry Zika, do they fly during the day or at night? Daytime, very good, right? So, and normal adult control programs usually happen when? Nighttime, yes, all right. So you're going to maybe, depending on the situation, have to think about when you're actually going to do your adult control. How are you actually going to test in your communities that what you did worked? Who does surveillance in here? Yes, before I came here today, I went and collected some New Jersey light trap collections and was IDing mosquitoes. Yeah. So we do a lot of surveillance, but we also rely on citizen reports. We have a bunch of phone calls, thousands, I would say, every year of people calling in and saying, man, in fact, I got a call today. Man, the mosquitoes are terrible out here. Can you please come out? And then the people that are actually doing the mosquito control, those people are going to tell you, and going to be a wealth of knowledge. So even when you got answered all these questions, another question is going to pop up, loom in your head. Even if you've done all your homework, you got the right product, you got the surveillance in place, how do you know that your mosquitoes are going to be susceptible to your adult control product? Well, that's where resistance testing comes into play. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about resistance? Just basically making sure that when you do an adult control product or treatment, that you're not causing a super bug. More wordy way of saying this is a heritable change in sensitivity of a pest population that is reflected in the repeated failure of a product to achieve the expected level of control when used according to the label recommendation for that pest species. I really think there should be a comma in there somewhere. Or in other words, it's not good. So how does it happen? There's a lot of things that influence resistance. How many times you're actually going to go out and do an adult control event in the same area? What product are you going to use, and how long is it going to persist in the environment? So are you going to use a barrier product that stays around in the environment a little bit longer, or are you going to use something that degrades relatively quickly in the environment? Dose. This is why Brian talked about getting your machines calibrated every year. You might be thinking that you're applying a lethal dose, but if your machines aren't calibrated correctly, you could be applying a sublethal dose. And then mosquito biology plays a huge role in this. We learned that some species only have one generation a year, right? While other species have as many generations a year as they possibly can. And then this population isolation, I'm talking about flight range here. Some species only have like 1/8 of a mile flight range. Other species have miles, right? All right, just a basic watered down example of how resistance could occur. You have resistance, it's going to be pretty rare in the population. So the R are the resistance mosquitoes, the S are the susceptible. So you're doing a good job. You go out and you do surveillance and you find a really high population of mosquitoes. You say, okay, I'm going to do an adult control event. Look, you knock them down pretty good. That's good. But notice, the resistance mosquito, because it's resistant, didn't die. Survivors reproduce, the resistant mosquito, the resistance population gets a little bit higher, right? Now here's the key. You can do another adult event, and you're going to use the same insecticide. I say that's the key because most mosquitoes that are resistant to one insecticide will not be resistant to another, at least if it's a different active ingredient. So same insecticide, knocked it down again, but now look, most of the mosquitoes that are surviving are resistant. When they reproduce, you have a dominant resistant population. When you go and do another adult control event, you're not getting that dominant population. So why do you care? Well, remember that resistance testing is a good part of that integrated mosquito management plan, and it can answer a lot of questions about how does this stuff work, or if this stuff works. Also imagine that a concerned citizen comes up to you, or comes up to your boss, or comes up to a public official, and says, I've been doing my homework about this mosquito control stuff. And I think that with a 2-week lifespan, mosquitoes can increase resistance to spraying within a single season. Your spray program would use more and more pesticides and have less and less of an effect. What are you going to say? Get out of here. That's right. No, yeah, I mean, it sounds really good, right? I mean, that's kind of hard to argue. Now, if you're doing resistance testing, you can say, well, yeah, that's true, but I've been doing resistance testing all season long and have seen no signs of resistance. Remember that emotionally charged opinions can shape public policy independent of scientific evidence. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox and I'll actually talk about the test. So it's called the CDC Model Bioassay Test. This website is where you can get the manual, okay? This is the manual. We put it in a nice binder. So I'm just going to hit the highlights of the manual, show you how to do the test. So there are things in there that I don't talk about. So it's a really easy, fast, and cheap test. And basically what we're doing is we're looking at time versus mortality. And really within that time, you're looking at the time it takes for the insecticide to penetrate mosquitoes' tissues, navigate through their tissues, and act on that mode of action that Ryan was talking about earlier. The other really good thing about this test is it's adaptable. You can do multiple different locations with this test. You can do multiple different insecticides with the test, and you can do multiple different species. And in fact, if you read the manual, the CDC recommends that you do a resistance test for every single species of mosquito that you are going to be doing an adult control for. I don't know how that's possible, but it's recommended. Okay, what do you need? It's called a bottle bioassay test because you use bottles. So this is a Wheaton bottle. You'll need at least 5. I checked it like a month ago. You can get 6 of them online for 25 bucks. Dispensable pipettes. You can get 100 of these for $6. That's going to last you a pretty long time. Or you can go a little bit more of an expensive route and get a micropipette. The only reason that you might need a micropipetter is that some of the test and sock solutions that you'll have to make require that you be more accurate than 1 ml. Aspirators. Need a mechanical aspirator. Luckily, these come free from the state, so all you gotta do is ask and get one. And then mouth aspirator. Now you can buy mouth aspirators that don't have the HEPA filter in it. You are sucking up mosquitoes. You're using your mouth to suck up mosquitoes. You don't want mosquito guts in your teeth if the filters are good. It also helps with like disease mosquitoes. Amber bottles, right here. Basically, you're just going to put your stock and test solutions in this. Acetone, it's just going to be what you dissolve your insecticide. Something to label your bottles with, and something to measure time. We use a wall clock. It's very technical and very scientific. You need your insecticides. Talk to Brian. Your PPE when you actually make your solution, so goggles and gloves. And then mosquitoes. You can collect adult, larva, or lab mosquitoes. Make sure that they're from or eggs, I'm sorry. Make sure that they're from the field and not from a lab. We always collect larvae and eggs. And basically that's just because we want to make sure that the life history of the mosquitoes are as close as they can be to one another. So if you collect an adult, you might be collecting like a week-old adult, right? Whereas if you collect an eggs, they've been in the same container their entire lives. All right, for the first step's probably the hardest step, but it's not that hard. Making your stock solutions and test solutions. Now, if you are using any one of these insecticides, you're golden. All you gotta do is go to this website and they tell you what your stock and test solutions should be, right? If you're using a different one, read the manual. Basically, all you're gonna do is make a bunch of different concentrations of the insecticide, run the test, see which one works best for you, okay? Once you get them made, keep them in a cool, dark place. Make sure that when you actually go to do the test, that you bring them back up in temp fill. Really cool thing is that most of the insecticides that you're going to use, you don't have to keep making the stock and test solution every year. Once you make them, you can use them for a bunch of different seasons. We've used ours for 3 seasons now. We made new this year, and Only reason is because I convinced my boss to buy me a micropipetter. I feel like I have to use it. Okay, test bottles. These are your weight bottles. One thing to point out is that when you go and buy these, I put a picture of the cap in here because you see that little white piece of paper? Yeah. If you don't have that little white piece of paper, you go and when you go and mess around with these bottles, you got to turn them upside down. You'll have some insecticide in it. So make sure you get that little piece of paper because it seals the bottle. Wash them out really good after every test. Make sure you wash them out because you don't want any residual pesticide in there. Very nice test. You get wheat bottles because they can withstand a good amount of heat. So if you have an oven, you can stick them right in there, or we just air dry bars overnight. And then what you're going to do with them is you're going to put 1 ml of your test solution in each one of your bottles. So you put it in there, close the cap up really well, coat the bottom of the bottle, coat the side of the bottle, that little 45 there, around. And then coat the lid. And then you should hear a sound. If you hear that, you know you've coated the bottle really well. So after you've coated the bottle, you'll have some extra liquid in there. And then if you remember back to chemistry, acetone is a really volatile liquid. So when I first started doing this, I was like, got to evaporate 1 ml of acetone. This will take like 5 minutes. Wrong. It takes a while. So manipulate your bottles, move them around, roll them on the table, try to get some airflow to try to evaporate all that acetone. Another thing to do is give it a whiff. You'll smell if there's any acetone. If you can't smell acetone, you probably did. It's probably dry. Another good thing is that you can store these bottles up to 5 days. So if you're doing your bottle prep one day, you don't actually have to do the test that same day, which is nice. All right, mosquitoes. You want to use females, not males. Usually about 20 females per bottle is good. And you want to feed them. So you don't want to like starve them. You don't want to have dead mosquitoes. You want strong mosquitoes. So if you look, this is our rearing containers. This is where we get put our larvae, and then they, right there, and then they fly up and to the top cage as adults. And then you just feed them a 10% sugar solution. Put it in a hot bowl. So that's what that is. So I know the whole point of this test is to kill the mosquitoes. But when you're moving the mosquitoes around, don't kill them. It's really easy to do. Try to be gentle. Okay. So mosquito rearing, like Brian was talking about, it can take if you're getting eggs, it can take 7 to 10 days to get adults. So we have them insect free, but you can just kind of let them hang out. Okay, transfer. So, first you're going to use your mechanical aspirator. You're going to have a vial. And what you're going to do is take the top of the cage, move the vial around a little bit, turn on your aspirator, shake them around. The good thing about the aspirator is, as long as it's on, you can take it off. You can count and say like, nah, that's not enough. Got to move it around a little bit more and get some more mosquitoes. Really important thing though, don't turn your aspirator off if you don't have your lid on your bottle. If you do that, you're going to have mosquitoes flying all around you. All right? So make sure your aspirator stays on. Put the lid on the vial and just let it sit. Okay? The mosquitoes just got stuck to a wall for about a minute. They're kind of days. So just let them hang out there. What we do is we have 5 bottles to do a test. So we had just use 5 different vials. Each vial gets 1 bottle. That way, by the time you get the last vial done, the first vial, they kind of not stacked. Then mouth aspirator. This is the most important piece of equipment in this whole house, the rubber cord. I'll tell you why in just a second. So what you're going to do is, see the percolated lid? It's got a percolated lid on it, so you just stick the little tube in there, like it. Now, the cork. The whole time that you have the cork off, you got to keep something on the aspirator. And if you lose your cork, or can't remember where you put it, you're going to pass out. Okay? So make sure that if you can't get all the mosquitoes in at one time, just cork it, take a few breaths, okay? All right. So here's a picture of some mosquitoes in the aspirator. Again, we let them hang out in the aspirator for a little bit because they just got sucked up behind the tube. So a little bit easy. Okay. After you got them in the aspirator, this is the best tip I'm going to give you in the day. This is a paper napkin. Free at any restaurant, or if you want to purchase them from me, I'll take money after this. Put the napkin over the aspirator, and go ahead, take the cork off for a second. And then all you got to do is just give it a little, that's it, just blow on it slightly. You don't want to really blow on it too hard because that'll create condensation in the bottle. Napkin comes into play when you take the aspirator out. Then you're like, oh man, what did I do? If you don't have the napkin here, there's some deep trouble. You got the napkin in there, you can take your time, just pull the napkin off. You know this thing is. If you notice here, look, there's some dead mosquitoes in these first couple bottles, and then live ones. The other two, we stagger our bottles because you're going to be making some observations and see which mosquitoes are alive or dead. So you want some time to do that. So take some time in between the bottles. All right, some terminology, diagnostic dose and diagnostic time. Diagnostic dose is the concentration of pesticide that it takes to kill 100% of mosquitoes. Diagnostic time is the time in which you want that diagnostic dose kill. Usually you want it somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. This is the data sheet that we use. It's from the manual. Here's the date, species of mosquitoes, the insecticide, diagnostic dose, diagnostic time, and location. That's just read out bottom down, control. I say that. One thing is, sometimes it's really easy to tell a dead mosquito because their legs shoot off. But other times it's not. Sometimes they just kind of like hang out there and you're not sure whether they're alive or dead. Move the bottle around, manipulate the bottle. If they're not really moving a lot, they're probably not doing very well. We count a mosquito as dead is if it's not going to bite you, right? Because that's really what we're aiming for. Mosquitoes not to bite you. If you get some death in your controls, there is a formula to adjust for that. But if we get like more than one or two deaths in our control, we disregard control. Okay, interpreting results. Basically, you're just going to plot, make a line graph of mortality versus time. And what you're really looking for is that diagnostic time. Okay, so that time it takes it to reach the 100% mortality. So if you got 100% to 98% in the diagnostic time that you wanted, you got a susceptible population. If you got 70 to 80%, you might have mortality, but you probably just want to do the test over again. You got less than 80%, you're probably dealing with some mortality issues or resistance issues. All right, so here's a bunch of aspirates. So we looked at two different locations here of pipiens, and then this will line is the average. And notice that even at the end of the whole trial, 2 hours, we only got 85% mortality. We didn't get what we wanted, right? So we might need to change our diagnostic. This is suggesting that there is potential resistance issues. Here again, pipiens, we did reach a good level of mortality, but you see that it took 120 minutes. So in the beginning of the season, if it took these mosquitoes, pipiens mosquitoes, using the same insecticide, it took them 30 minutes to die, and now it's taking them 120 minutes, that's definitely a problem, right? You're seeing that though it's taking longer time for the mosquitoes to die. It's probably a buildup to the insect, buildup of a resistance to the insects. Here's what you hope to see within somewhere between the 45 and 60 minute mark. We got that hit that susceptible range, and this is notice though that this is a different species. You do, like I said, you can do different species of mosquitoes in the same test. Here we have Japonicus, and you notice it's exactly, they're susceptible. However, you look at Helix again, it's taken them a little bit too long to reach that susceptibility. Okay, when I first started doing this, I was like, when I saw this graph, I was like, yeah, killed them all in 15 minutes. I'm really good. Why is that not good? You can put any concentration of insecticide in a bottle that you want. So you can kill these things pretty much instantly if you want. But that's really not the goal of this test. So if you kill them in 15 minutes, and throughout the course of an adult control season, they develop resistance, you're not going to see it because you just kill them. I mean, you just put them in there and they're stopped. So you want to get it in within that 30 to 60 minute range, and then over the course of the season, see if that time is going farther and farther. 15 minutes, they're pretty much dying instantly. Some other things to keep in mind, like I said, resistance can vary by species, location, and time of the season. So it's recommended at the very least that if you are doing an adult control program, that you definitely should be doing resistance testing pre-season and post-season. So before you go out and do your first adult control, and after you do your last, you should be doing resistance tests. If you're using a product that has a synergist, we talked about how you can test for that. I'm not going to talk about it. And then I also talked about the saturation point, which you might run into. So, in conclusion, this is a really, gives you really good scientific data and to help answer a lot of questions. It's a very important thing to do because we're supposed to be public health people, we're supposed to help people, and if you're causing resistance, it's not going to help. It's very expensive. It's really not that technical. And it's a pretty fun thing to do if you like mosquitoes at all. If you like mosquitoes and you like watching them X-File, if you need help, we're here. Like I said, my name is Jake Sublett. My boss is Paul Ballman. I have both my cards up here.